For the Young at Heart is sponsored by Duville Life and Wellness Community, a commitment to care, a legacy of compassion. This is Duville.
Hello, welcome to For the Young at Heart. My name is Lucille Jerome, and on today's program we're going to be taking a look at holidays when you have a family member who is diagnosed with dementia. My guest today is Lisa Sobian, and she's the Director of Dementia Services and Life Enrichment Programs at Duville Life and Wellness Community. Thank you for coming again. This is great. This is great.
Yes.
So much goes on around any holiday or special event. So from your experience, what is there out there, and from your experience, that we can use to help families?
Well, I think, the holidays and family events can be so stressful to begin with.
Right.
Exactly. Planning and, all of the different details you need to do, and sometimes the different family dynamics that are out there, that I think planning is the key. And really understanding where your loved one is in their abilities and their needs, and kind of what the environment is going to be like, and kind of thinking about the unforeseen and all of that. I mean, and we can kind of take that piece by piece and break that down.
Sure, because the environment may not be familiar anymore to a person with dementia who's been away for a while.
Absolutely.
Even if they're still living at home, with all the hullabaloo of the family planning. So let's try to break it down in how to make it easier for the family and for the person diagnosed with dementia.
Well, I think certainly the more thought someone puts into it beforehand, the less stress for that person in the end. Because I think, especially if you're hosting some sort of an event and you have a loved one with dementia, you have the normal stress plus the stress of wondering, how your loved one is going to fare.
Right.
And I think a lot of times we need to change our expectations and maybe pare down what our traditions are a little bit.
Let's talk a little about that, because some families have traditions that just have to happen every holiday.
Yes.
Well, things change. So some of these traditions might have to change. That's a very good point. Very good point.
They do, because you don't want to create a situation where, especially for the person with dementia, where they're going to become overwhelmed and perhaps communicate those difficulties through a difficult behavior or something, or become very anxious and agitated. For some people with dementia, lots of people can be very overstimulating. If you picture someone in a family event where suddenly there's many people who aren't familiar to them anymore. There's lots of extraneous noises. When we think about someone with dementia, we have to remember that communication is so important, and for many people, they can't filter out a lot of extraneous noises.
That's right. So they might be in the room with family members having a conversation. Maybe they're sitting comfortably in a chair, but they don't know what's going on.
Right.
They don't know what's going on anymore.
And they could have, because of visual disturbances, they can have different illusions, maybe shadows, casting off or looking like people, and can be frightening, or, they just may be fearful if they don't know where they are or what's going on, or if people aren't paying attention to them. So you really have to kind of, I think, take a look at what your event is going to be.
Okay.
And, some people are still living at home, so they're in the community. Some people are living perhaps in some sort of long-term care facility. So I think the first step is, is this environment the best for my loved one in this case? And as difficult as it may be to say, we really can't have, mom would not do well in this environment. But what can we do to help her to celebrate and still not let go of the traditions we have as a family.
Yes, yes. So if they're living, say, in a long-term care facility or assisted living, and maybe they were fine, maybe just a year ago they were able to handle a visit home. Maybe it was just fine, but they've progressed, and now it might be too stressful. So what are some of the things to help them still celebrate, say, in the facility, and you can still celebrate at home, and then somehow get together at some point?
Absolutely. So I think, if they're in, knowing whether it's a good idea to take them out
Right,
is really
right,
important, because
right.
you have to know, is it safe, first of all? Can we transport this person safely? Do we need to get a chair car or something? Can we take them in our car? Are they at a place in their disease process where if you take them out, they're going to be very angry coming back? That's important to take into consideration too. Is it physically, can they even handle being out? Some people, at a certain point in the disease, they go out for a couple hours and then they're done.
They're done.
They're really exhausted, and maybe they need to have a nap before they've gone out, a rest or something. So some things that you can do is, if they're in a facility, you can find out what is the facility doing to celebrate the holidays. Often there are things that they're doing that you can partake in as a family. So you can have whatever holiday that is there. And then maybe go with the rest of your extended family and do what you were going to do.
Okay.
Sometimes people will decide to bring the holiday in, or the special occasion, maybe it's a birthday or something, and find a room in whatever the facility is, and come and celebrate there.
Yes.
We've had many people who have used one of our rooms, and they bring the balloons and food, and they really have a wonderful celebration there. Also, certain days, for someone with dementia, it gets to a point where they're not necessarily aware of the calendar and the time. So if you have a particular holiday that falls on a particular day with your family, you could celebrate that on a different day with your loved one.
If they've progressed far enough along in the disease process, you could have that celebration anytime.
Absolutely. Or you could even, there are some families that for Thanksgiving, because people live far away or people are working, they say, well, we're having Thanksgiving on Saturday.
Right.
And I know plenty of people who do that.
Right.
You could plan to do that. You might have a very large family event that can't be changed, as you said before, but then you're going to do something small to celebrate with your loved one.
Right. You can still have a separate, you can have the celebration, you can have more than one holiday.
Absolutely.
You can have more than one holiday, okay? Sure. So a facility, and I actually don't like using that word, the nursing home or the, their home. Their home away from home might be having one or more several events that they might be able to go to, and even that might be overwhelming. I mean, there's music, there might be carolers, there's a lot of people, and that might be, maybe they can handle a little bit, maybe a half an hour. And that's great for that half an hour, and then you go back. They've at least celebrated something.
They have, and they've had that half an hour. The key point is you want the person to have a positive experience.
Yes, right.
They're probably not going to remember the experience beyond whatever time their capacity is at that moment. So you want everyone in the present to experience that, that love and good time, and however it is that you typically celebrated, whatever it is, and and don't do it beyond what their tolerance is, because it's not giving them any more to say, well, we're going to do this for 4 hours because we've always done this for 4 hours, and the person is miserable,
which that stress then
everybody's
goes out to everybody else too.
Absolutely.
Everybody else
And
gets
if
that.
you have someone
It's contagious, isn't it?
It definitely is. Just like a smile is contagious, so is stress.
Right.
And you might have an event at your house, and some tips, sometimes if you're having company, you might want to let people know who haven't seen that person for a while what changes to expect. Some families may send out an email or make calls and say, we're looking forward to having you, and we just want to let you know, since the last time that you saw so-and-so, some of the changes, they may or may not recognize you. Don't take it personally. If we have too many people trying to talk to them all at once, that may be difficult. Give them some techniques to communicate with them if they are not sure. Speak slowly, make eye contact.
the eye contact and making it a one-on-one conversation, okay, without extraneous noises around, if at all possible.
Absolutely.
All right?
Because
Sure.
we can filter out.
Right.
You know, we might be at a party talking intently, and there's a million conversations
Right.
and music going on, and we can usually
Right.
filter, unless we're a little nosy and want to know what's going on over there. We can filter it out. But someone with dementia has trouble filtering that out, and so they're going. You know, eye contact is good, because if you don't have eye contact, you don't necessarily have their attention.
Right.
You know, and you might. When you've met one person with dementia, you've met one person with dementia. So someone even in the very early stages might find that going to a family event is wonderful, and they're feeling so much love and support, and they're still able to engage, where other people in the same part of the disease, that might be overwhelming, and they may kind of shut down. So knowing that individual is so important also.
So the family members or members who are well acquainted and well loved and loving of this particular person, whether it's mom or dad or grandma, grandpa. You mentioned earlier, communicating with other family members who might not have been around for a while.
Right.
There might be family members coming in from out of state, and they have certain memories and certain expectations that no longer apply.
Especially young children, perhaps.
Young children too,
And
yes.
there's wonderful books out there that you can read about, you know, about the disease process that are geared toward children understanding that.
children.
Plan maybe things to do together if the person can still walk, maybe take a short walk, maybe, you know, decorate cupcakes together. Being careful not to plan things that are going to be overwhelming. You want everything to be failure-free for the person.
Right. Talk a little bit about failure-free so our audience will understand that a little bit more, because that's a very important issue.
So failure-free, basically, when you think about someone with dementia, they are losing abilities over time. And of course, we want to keep their independence as long as possible, and we want to keep them doing as much for themselves as possible. So what we need to do sometimes is start to adapt the things they've done. So if you have someone who was an avid cook and maybe was always the host of the holidays, the family holidays, and now they have dementia, and they can't pull this all together now, but you want them to feel included. So maybe you give them small things. Maybe they can still, butter the bread or help set the table, involving them in things that they can still do. Maybe they can still peel the carrots, or they can stir, whatever that is, find it. But as time goes on, you want to not have it be a frustrating, stressful situation. So where the person is trying to do something that then they're going to fail at and feel frustrated. So maybe what they need is they can put everything for the baking, for the cake they've always made. Maybe they can put it all in the bowl, but they can't measure it out and figure out what they need anymore. So lay it all out with the different ingredients and say, okay, now we're going to put that one in and that one in. So you're supporting them so they can be successful. That's basically what that is.
Okay. And for guys, suppose it's grandpa. Suppose it's grandpa. Maybe they're not going to be cooking, or maybe they were. Maybe they were, or maybe just being around some of the family members, being in there, in the same room. But being in tune with where they are in the moment. I feel like we're talking about Eckhart Tolle or something, being in the now. Which is true, and what you have to be doing.
You do, and sometimes if you have a large family event, or say you're even taking somebody to a wedding, it's really important to perhaps make sure there's somebody kind of buddying up with that person, so you can keep an eye on any signals they're giving. That people are at such different states of the disease. In the beginning, they may still be able to function very, very well. As time goes on, they may not be able to necessarily, especially if they're overwhelmed, let you know that, gee, I do need to use the restroom. So you want to have somebody who's kind of looking for those cues to help the person, making sure they're eating and drinking, so not leaving them alone, especially too if you're someplace you want to make sure it's safe and the person isn't going to wander off. And if you're bringing them to a home, that you want to make sure that environment is safe too. Make sure there's no scatter rugs that they can slip on.
That's right, home safety issues. So let's say a daughter or a son is going to have mom come home for the holiday. Say they're living in an assisted living, have been there for a while, and or a nursing home, and they're going to be visiting now. So there's a transportation you want to arrange. How do you manage that out? Maybe you've always been able to take them home in your own car. Now it's a little bit different. Maybe you need the van. Okay, so you get home, they don't know where they are. They might not know who you are. They might have forgotten who you are. They look great, they sound great, but the memory is gone. Okay, so the stressor, removing the stressors as much as possible.
Absolutely. If they're in a
Okay.
wheelchair, making sure there's clear room
Right,
to
right.
move the wheelchair around. You know, accommodating changes in vision that the person may have. You know, sometimes a dark throw rug might look like a bottomless pit because of
Yes.
visual changes. So make sure, you know, that's not there. We're in a place where you want them to go. If it's a place that you don't want them to go, then maybe put that there.
Okay.
You can use the safety, you know,
Sure.
stairwells. Make sure those are, you know, they're not going, if they have trouble with stairs, that they're not going to have a situation that would be accidental.
So you mentioned buddying up with someone. So maybe there's a family member, maybe one of the teenagers could buddy up with grandma or something and sort of just say bye, maybe read together.
Absolutely. Maybe
Okay.
have a place that you know will be a quiet spot if the person's becoming overwhelmed, but they can go and lay down for a few minutes or just sit,
Sure.
read with somebody, listen to music, and
Music is good.
Music is really good.
Music is really good.
Keeping the decorations simple.
Really?
Well, not too. I mean,
Like, let's say it's Christmas. Let's say it's Christmas.
okay.
And you have this humongous tree. Well, you maybe don't want her going too close to the tree. She might be starting to pick at things depending on what stage she's at.
Yes.
But it's a beautiful tree.
Absolutely.
Do you think maybe a smaller tree, or how do you adjust that?
Well, I think if that's the tree that you have, you just want to make sure that someone is with the person.
With the person.
Pending, you know, if it's a risk that you think, gee, she or he has been doing that, picking things and grabbing things,
right.
making sure that someone is aware.
Okay,
If you're,
okay.
you know, if you want the person to have a tree that and you haven't gotten one yet, and it's for them particularly, maybe a smaller version might be a little bit better. Not necessarily having blinking lights, that can be disorienting to
Yes,
people.
that's a good point, the blinking lights.
blinking lights.
Now, if they're still in an assisted living or a nursing home, they can decorate the rooms.
Absolutely.
They can decorate the
Oh,
rooms.
yeah, absolutely.
Of course,
You just
of
have to go by
course.
whatever the policies
Right,
are at
sure,
the place.
sure,
You know,
sure.
avoiding, I wouldn't have, if you're having the person over, I wouldn't, some people like to have candles up and all of that. I wouldn't necessarily do that because they might burn themselves. The shadows also might not be good.
right.
Sometimes people have like a bowl with fake fruit, and being careful if the person sees it and isn't able to distinguish that it's fake. You don't want them eating that. Poisonous plants around, making sure that
There's a lot to consider, but
There's a lot.
every one of these items, it may apply, some of them may apply to one family member and
Absolutely.
not another at all. But when you put it all together, these are wonderful ideas and tips for
Yes.
families, so that everyone can have an enjoyable holiday or
Absolutely.
special event or a wedding. Could be any.
Absolutely.
It could be any
Absolutely.
holiday or event.
there have been people who they really couldn't take their loved one to a wedding, but the bride and groom came another day all dressed up. You know, that's
That's nice.
how wonderful is
Yeah,
that? They can
yeah.
still experience
Yeah,
that. There's also Skype and FaceTime. You know, for people who have a little technology, you might not be able.
Did you see me glaze?
Yes, I saw you glaze over. You said, "What is she talking about?" So there's some technology out there that is actually fairly simple to use, that you could actually sit on a computer and have a conversation, a visual conversation with someone far away.
Okay.
So you know,
Okay.
you can be talking to them, and
So there's lots of, basically, bottom line, there are lots of ways to engage
Yes.
this person with dementia. They don't have to be isolated out from the holiday or any event. Whatever
Exactly.
their level is.
Right.
And there are various levels
absolutely.
that change over time.
Absolutely, there's
Yeah.
people who for years will, you know, continue to be able to do the same
Sure,
thing.
sure.
You know, then there's, you know, and if you have to travel with the person, you also want to think about that. You know, plan, is this going to, you know, if you're going to an airport with them, make sure you don't leave them alone.
Yes.
You know, make sure that
Yes.
you have let somebody know if they're really having trouble communicating and all of that. Sometimes it's helpful to let, you know, the people at the hotel know when you come in that this is there. There's people who have made up little cards that will kind of say, you know, they can give them to somebody maybe when they go into a restaurant, say, please be patient, my loved one has memory problems. And that sometimes can help with that. Arrange for things, if you need wheelchairs, arrange that ahead of time. You don't want to get there and just suddenly, be faced with that, because that's going to put undue stress on the caregiver also.
That's right. We need to remember that piece of it also.
And the caregiver who's trying to do everything and make everybody, happy, they really need to, we want to take care of them also.
Right.
So, and that may mean, gee, I can't have 15 or 20 people this time for this holiday. I can do 4, and that's okay. Maybe someone else picks it up, or maybe you have a couple of different events. And thinking about, there's also gift giving, which,
oh my gosh,
that's
yes.
another element, because if you're giving, people don't know, gee, what should I give this person? Make sure that it's practical things. Don't give them new technology, things that they have to, learn new. Maybe.
So what might be some gifts? I would see, already I'm thinking, okay, little note paper, even if they're not going to write, someone at the nursing home or
that's
facility
lovely.
could write, but have stamps, have a roll of stamps, have labels already typed up with family addresses.
Excellent. That is
Okay.
absolutely, that's wonderful. You could, maybe the person even would like to just bake some cookies with you.
Yes.
That kind of a memory gift, like a, or in the moment gift. So it's not something that they're holding on to, that they have to kind of,
Oh,
Cousin
boy.
Susie gave this to me. But they had
Right.
that moment of,
Right.
of enchantment with the person. A nice warm blanket, something
Something warm.
fuzzy,
Yeah.
a memory book. Make a memory book that has pictures of loved ones in it
Yes.
for them.
Yes.
Or a frame with some lovely pictures. Pictures are wonderful.
Yes.
And sometimes labeling them too is also really nice. This is Susie and George's wedding.
Yeah. So there's any number of things to do or be. So let's say you're going to take them out for a holiday meal or a wedding. Say the wedding's at 3 or 4. So to get them ready for that, you don't want to have everything bunched up ahead of time. You want to pace that out too.
Yes.
The hairdresser
Absolutely.
or getting the clothing and making sure they have the clothing that you want them to wear ahead of time, instead of coming in that day and not having what you want them to wear. But thinking through these things, it's really not as difficult as it's sounding. It's really
I think
it's really pacing yourself.
It is pacing. I think what's difficult is if you just really have no idea where to begin and you feel completely overwhelmed. And people can certainly get online if they're able to use the computer and put into the search engine, how to plan for the holidays and things like that.
Yes.
There's so many
Yes.
articles and things that will
Yes.
come up and tips
Right.
that will show you. But sometimes a checklist helps, knowing what you need to
I'm
do.
a checklist person.
I am
I'm a
too. I like to
checklist
check it off.
person.
I like to
Yeah.
put
Yeah.
even the things down that I've done already, so I can at least check it off.
That's
It
right.
looks like I've
That's right.
accomplished something.
That's right.
So if the person is in a facility, knowing, gee, I'm going to be taking them out, what do I need to do? I need to let the nurses know that they're going out. I need to have the outfit ready. If they're at home and you are struggling, getting dressed is a struggle, figuring out, okay, do we need to start earlier? Do you have services coming in? Maybe have them on that day to help out.
Yes. Okay. Now, how about enlisting other family members to help out? What are some easy-going ways to enlist other family members? You want to have, maybe you don't have the 20 people, or maybe you do, or maybe you do. It's what you think you can tolerate. But how do you get other family members to help out in some different ways?
I think sometimes people want to help but don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And they need to be asked. They need to be kind of, could you do this for me?
So give them a hint.
Give them a hint, give them a job, or be, depending on your relationship with them, if they say, what can I do for you? What would be really helpful? If you could go to the bakery and pick this up for me this morning because I have to get mom dressed. Or, I'm just really exhausted, and since you're coming in for the holidays, could you take over, visiting for the bulk of this week so I can actually get done what I need to do, or get some rest because I'm really tired trying to do everything for everybody, do it all.
Do it all.
I think it's that kind of honesty is really important. I think sometimes people will say, "What can I do for you?" But they don't know.
They don't know.
Especially if they're not living it. If they've come from out of state or they're not experiencing, they really don't know, and people often, people like to feel like they're helpful
Sure, sure.
and have a job to do. And sometimes, you know the people in your life who are the do. Some people love to run the errands for you. Call on
Yeah,
those people. Some
yeah.
people are the people that love to, that are great listening to you when you're really stressed. Then there's some that are great helping you figure it all out.
Yep.
Calling
There's some
on those
great
people.
bakers.
Some great bakers, yes.
Okay, they can
You know,
do the baking for you.
Absolutely. You might have a friend who loves to bake and doesn't have a lot going on at that moment, and what can I do? I'm having people. Oh, would you bake that marvelous bread that you
Yeah.
have made in the past?
Yeah. Now, what's clicking in my mind right now, there are some caregivers who are so locked into the routine that that's who they are.
It's their identity.
That's their identity, so that allowing themselves to feel free to give away some of those tasks that need to get done. That might be a bit tough for some people. So there are support groups that can help with this, aren't there?
Absolutely. There are support groups, and if someone is interested in a support group specific for caregivers of people with dementia, they can get online at the Alzheimer's Association, which is www.alz.org/MANH. I'll say it again.
Okay, good.
www.alz.ma. I'm sorry, I just lost my train of thought. www.alz.org/MANH stands for Massachusetts and New Hampshire.
Right.
And you can find a list of the support groups. There are several locally in this area.
Right. So there's many different ways to enable the family member with the diagnosis and the caregiver and the family members to still have an enjoyable holiday. It's adapting. It's really
And
adapting.
sometimes you need to get together beforehand and just have a meeting.
Yeah.
Say, gee, we've got this. What are we going to do? We have let's sit down and really plan this together, so everybody's on the same page, because you don't want any extra tension.
Yeah. We're going to be winding up shortly, and we've covered a lot of there's more territory we could have covered probably, but we've given the gist of the issues for people to think about, how to make their lives easier during holiday time or special event time, and so that everyone can have some enjoyment. And it is the key word, though, is adapting, isn't it? And being in the
Flexible.
now. Flexible.
Yes.
Flexible.
And that can be really difficult.
Right.
It can be somebody's New Year's resolution.
Oh my gosh. And keep it, though, and keep the resolution.
Absolutely.
So in summary, let's think about a summary.
Well, one thing I did forget to say that I think important too is keeping in mind the time of day the event is, because for some people later in the evening can be much more difficult. People may sundown, and so if you usually do something at a dinner meal, maybe have it at noon.
Yes.
Or have a brunch.
Yes. Okay. All right.
But I think in summary, just looking at where your loved one is at, acknowledging your own abilities at that moment. It's okay.
It's okay.
Asking for help
Is okay.
is okay, and just
It doesn't mean you're neglecting. In fact, you're enhancing the situation by being able to adapt.
absolutely, because
Okay.
ultimately you don't want yourself to be stressed out and
Right.
get sick, and you don't want
Right.
your loved one to
Exactly.
be stressed out and perhaps be very uncomfortable and agitated.
Right. Okay. I want to thank you so much for coming
So
today.
welcome. Thank you.
We always have this wonderful conversation about what to do and how to go about it and how to be human with our family members, the most important people in our lives. Thank you again for coming.
Thank you,
Thank you for
Lucille.
watching.
For the Young at Heart is sponsored by Duville Life and Wellness Community, a commitment to care, a legacy of compassion. This is Duville.